So it's Sunday, December the 7th, 2008, and I'm here with Mark Gaffney in the National Park, and our topic this time is recognizing when you're wrong, and I expect then that there's things that you should do once you recognize that you're wrong, if it's a significant error.
Right.
So what are your thoughts, Mark?
So we're talking about, recognizing when you're wrong. And it's a very hard thing for people to do all over the place. And the question is why? And it's why is it hard for people to actually say, hey, my bad, right? And there's a couple of different reasons. And each one we need to look at, because the only way a person can actually grow is actually to know when I was wrong, and actually the reason we're alive in the world is to grow.
Right.
And that's the basic idea in Hebrew wisdom, is development, right? We're alive to grow, and growing is the most pleasurable thing we can do.
Yeah.
Growth and development, like we see it actually in the physical body, right? No pain, no gain, right? So there's a certain pain in owning that we were wrong about something, but that's what we actually grow from in a real way. So let's try and look together, what are the reasons that people can't own their wrong? Okay? So, snowballs, ah!
Can I throw it at your jacket?
Absolutely. Ah! Look forward, throwing snowballs at me! Oh my God, I won't hit the camera, I promise.
Don't hit the camera, but you can hit my
camera.
jacket.
Ah! So the first reason people can't admit that they're wrong is because what happens is it taps into a primal feeling of being bad, right? In other words, people think, oh, if I'm wrong about this, it taps into actually what they call today a kind of shame.
Right.
A kind of toxic shame, because somehow in my early life, someone might have made you or me feel so bad about being bad, right? That kind of toxic shame, that you actually can't be wrong about anything because it taps into this really toxic, terrible shame. So then the healing to that is to actually be able to distinguish. No, actually, you're just wrong about this,
Right.
but actually, you're a good, decent, beautiful person, loved and embraced by God.
Right.
So that's the first thing, right? It's the wrong that taps into this kind of primal wrongness of being, which is a false idea, and people are unable to distinguish between the two, and there's an automatic trigger, right? Being wrong about X triggers for a person into that kind of wrongness of being.
Right.
That's a big deal. And so part of the job of a teacher or a spiritual friend is to actually give a person a sense of actually, no, your being is not wrong. You're actually beautiful and gorgeous and holy and created in the image of God. Homo imago Dei, the most important idea in Hebrew wisdom. And so actually, when I can actually realize that and own and feel my full beauty, from that place I can also own being wrong where I'm wrong. So that's one. So now two of it is, people can't admit being wrong because they feel if I admit being wrong, I won't be able to function in the world.
Right.
I'll have given up too much. I won't be able to function. I won't be able to do what I need to do. That's true about lawyers and judges and, commentators and presidents and teachers.
Right.
So let's just talk about teachers for a second. There's like two views of teachers. One view of teacher is, they can do whatever they want and who cares as long as they own they're wrong and it's all cool. That's one view. Second view is teachers are perfect, never make any mistakes, they have full spiritual attainment. Those are two views, right? Two extreme views. One is, there's no requirement you get to do anything you want even though you're a teacher as long as you admit you were wrong. Second view, right, teachers are basically perfect, never do anything wrong. Of course, neither is true.
Right.
On the one hand, a teacher has to have real spiritual attainment. A teacher has to be really dedicated to study if that's their practice, to teaching, right, to walking their talk in the best way they can, and to really be dedicated, to rigor in whatever their practice is. We were just at my house. You have a deep, rigorous practice of study, right, of praying.
Right.
And that's a real thing, and of loving people in every way I can in my life. That's got to be real.
Right.
On the other hand, right, every teacher, like every human being, right, makes a mistake. And when you make a mistake or you have a certain kind of mistake, you have to actually kind of own that and actually say, hey, I made a mistake. So for example, in my case, right, I'll take a particular mistake. I didn't realize that, what I experienced as beautiful private relationships that I was having when I was in Israel teaching, could actually be used to hurt me and hurt my teaching, right, and undermine my teaching. And my primary obligation at that time was to teach, right? And I didn't understand. I was unconscious that actually, it's not a good idea, right? To allow for the potential undermining of what you're doing, right? And that's not cool. So that was a mistake. You know, although the relationships themselves in every ground of being I experience as being ethical, you know, nonetheless, you know, they served to undermine a structure which is doing enormous good for an enormous amount of people. So my bad, my wrong, okay? So you got to kind of own that in a deep way. And then move on and deepen and learn from it and grow and, you know, and teach again and open up your heart and do the world. Now on your side, right, I would say, this is my kind of, you know, loving challenge. I think it seems to me, I haven't followed your blog in a while, that you've actually shifted and also owned a wrong in terms of blogging, right? There was a certain point in your life which you weren't that careful what you put on a blog, right? And actually that's not cool, because when you put something on a blog about anyone, it has a million implications. It can change a million things. That's an enormous responsibility. So for a blogger to say, actually, you know, hey, at a certain point in my life I was too loose and free, and I actually may have hurt people, you know, and now I'm actually owning that wrong, and actually I'm continuing blogging, but from a more evolved place, that's a big deal. And to own that wrong is not easy, because you feel the resistance to it. Like, am I my bad? Am I not good? Is this what I'm doing? But actually, if we can actually look straight into, right, the mirror and say, oh my God, I'm beautiful, I'm wonderful, I'm holy, I'm created in the image of God, right? That's what the Torah teaches me. And I'm evolving and I'm growing, and I own that wrong, and I do whatever I can to restitute that wrong, to correct that wrong in the world, and I move on. And that's what every human being needs to do. And the greater a human being, right, the greater they need to be able to do that in a kind of clear and direct way. So that's about being wrong.
Okay, I'll take it from here with some thoughts. Blogging is a different form of technology for communication. So traditionally, journalism was done in newspapers, where you'd file a story and then it would get printed on a page, and there was a finality to it. Once that was printed and distributed, you couldn't change that article. You could write later articles making corrections and updating a story, but that one article that was printed in that day's newspaper, that was final. So blogging is a form of technology where you can write separate independent articles and treat them with all the seriousness that you would an article that you submitted for publication in print that would then be irrevocable. Very few bloggers do that. What it tends to is an art form that's kind of, in what I do anyway, more akin to talk radio, where, like Dennis Prager, for instance, who's a hero of mine, I have 3 hours a day to talk, and he'll say things that he regrets. He'll be speaking on the fly. He said, for instance, about Ralph Ellison, the first Muslim congressman, that he should not be allowed to take the oath of office on the Quran. In fact, he not just made that mistake on his radio show, he made that in a printed column, or in his weekly column. He wrote that, and he quickly came to regret it, saying that. So for me, I will, on a typical day, make 10 or 12 posts, and it's been effortless for me to correct when a mistake has been pointed out. It's both effortless technologically, you can immediately change something, and it's generally effortless for me morally and journalistically and blogger wise and humanly. So, I got a mistake, or an update. Many things that you update, where for a while I was inquiring, did Mark Gaffney really get a PhD from Oxford University? Then the evidence came through. Mark had indeed achieved his PhD in the last year, and as soon as that evidence came through, and as soon as I had a document attesting to that, it was effortless for me to then post it. So because this is the way I've been making my living, and this is the way I have lived, not just for my living but for myself, last 11 years, it's very quick and easy for me when there's new evidence comes in, a new perspective, to immediately want to include that on my